on Hurricane Milton with meteorologist Jennifer Lambers. Jen.
Yeah, thank you both. And so also I want to point out with that video too, one of the concerning things there is going to be all of that debris that they put by the roadways just from Helene, as that I know the crews were working overtime just trying to get some of that debris out of there, because once you start to get some of that storm surge moving in, it's just going to be picking all of it back up, and that's what's going to be moving into the homes, the businesses, the windows in those areas. So that was going to be one of the concerning looks just in that ghost town look, just trying to clear out some of that debris that they've already begun on the cleanup efforts there from Hurricane Helene, all ahead of Hurricane Milton. Now here is a look at satellite and radar just off the coast of Florida. We're getting a better look at this system now that it's pushing in closer towards all of the radar sites there located across the U.S. But also take a look at these tornado warnings. Now there's going to be about 5 separate warnings here. We had one near Fort Myers, one near Marco Island, and then some of these just over on the north side of the Everglades, so over more of those wildlife management areas. These ones is going to be in the less populated areas. However, Fort Myers, Marco Island, already seeing just some of those tornado warnings firing up with a decent little bit of rotation in there. But regardless of that, already starting to see some of those rain bands too. So bringing in some of those gusty winds, those heavy downpours, and only beginning to push in more of that storm surge. Now, we did get a new advisory update from the National Hurricane Center at 11 a.m. They're continuing these hourly now since it is beginning to get closer towards landfall heading into tonight. At last check, those sustained winds 145 miles per hour, still holding on to that category 4 strength. Just a reminder, 2 hours ago, those sustained winds were 155, so Milton still continuing just to slightly weaken. That pressure 931 millibars, tracking northeast at 17 miles per hour. Right now, that location, it did update a little bit, 150 miles west-southwest of Fort Myers. Now, it is still expected to impact the Florida Peninsula as that major hurricane. The National Hurricane Center did downgrade that at that 10 a.m. advisory update to that Cat 3 at landfall. But regardless of whatever that number says, those impacts are still going to be felt. It's going to be that wind, that rain, and most importantly, too, that storm surge as it continues just to track across Florida and back out into the Atlantic. Here's a look at that peak storm surge that we're expecting. So some areas just a little bit to the south, they're going to be getting closer towards 9 feet. All of these numbers that you're seeing right here, that's going to be greater than what Helene brought to that area. So Tampa through Sarasota down towards Fort Myers, seeing more of that storm surge just above 12 feet. Again, a reminder, Helene, they saw that storm surge amount closer towards that 7 to 8 foot range. And a reminder of how storm surge works, it's not going to be that coastline going up along the coast. That's going to be in terms of height there, that feet above ground level. So that's really going to be significant as we get closer towards this evening, that we'll start to see more of that storm surge moving in. So these areas really going to be feeling the impacts, even if they're outside of the cone. That storm surge will be the greatest impact that we're starting to see from Hurricane Milton as it makes that landfall approach. There's just a little bit of a closer look there. We'll only continue to see some of that, also including Venice and Naples in that. So in case you know anyone that lives in the Tampa area, just be checking in with them in case they did not heed any of those evacuation warnings, because we will start to see widespread power outages. Only expecting more of those power outages to even extend further inland. I have some friends over in Orlando checking in with them. They're taking all of those precautions at this time, getting ready for more of that wind and those power outages that they will be experiencing. Now, coming up in just a little bit, I'm going to be talking more about our forecast here locally, continuing to track Hurricane Milton as it makes that landfall approach heading into the overnight hours. Those details are coming up soon. Chelsea. And also continuing to track Hurricane Milton at this time, looking in on radar just a little bit closer, where we're starting to see some of those rain bands already beginning to move on shore. There's a look at some of those active tornado warnings beginning just to move through Sanibel, Fort Myers, and San Carlos Park. We'll continue to monitor more of this and keep you updated here on Fox 10 for that forecast closer towards the Florida Peninsula, and also our forecast here locally. All of that is coming up. Continuing to keep an eye on our forecast and tracking Hurricane Milton as it approaches closer towards that landfall impact heading into tonight. But as mentioned, here is another live view. This is going to be Fort Myers Beach. you can already just start to see some of the impacts that we're seeing down there with just some of that sand washing ashore, some rough surf and some wind out there. Again, this is going to be a live view in Fort Myers Beach, already seeing some of those outer rain bands and some of those tornado warnings firing off for the Fort Myers area. I'll have additional updates on Hurricane Milton, which right now is a Category 4 hurricane. Those details coming up on the other side of the break. Fox 10 midday and taking another live view at North Fort Myers. Now the camera having to update just a little bit. Oh wow, look at that. So this is the reason why that camera is having to update. We'll see how much longer we have the connection for, but you can start to see just all of that rain that is beginning to move in front of this camera view, how windy it is. So again, this camera view going to be in North Fort Myers. I feel like we won't have that visual much longer with that camera. We'll continue to check in on different areas across the Florida Peninsula on the west coast there throughout the rest of the hour. We've been seeing some additional areas, most of those just near Fort Myers, where they're really feeling the impacts from some of those outer rain bands. More of those moving into Marco Island, Naples, already seeing those tornado warnings on the other side of the peninsula, just on the east coast there. They were moving through the Everglades earlier, now only continuing to track north, getting closer towards Orlando, but that will also be one of the concerns for the Orlando area heading into today, mainly that wind, the power outages, and that tornado threat, with some of those outer rain bands already beginning to impact additional areas. Also something to watch here is going to be more of that rain that we're just continuing to see, that steady rainfall towards the Tampa area, all ahead of some of those Category 3 hurricane winds. Again, it's saturating the soil out there. That's just what some of those trees need to topple over, is going to be that saturated soil, those slippery roots, nothing to hold on once those Category 3, 4 force winds do get closer. Now taking a look at the tropical alerts, again, hurricane warnings all in place between Tampa, across the state, even Orlando included in that. Additional areas in that dark red coloration, that's going to be those tropical storm warnings. And then just off the east coast there in Georgia, South Carolina, the tropical storm watch, where we could see some of those tropical storm force conditions impact those areas once Milton crosses over the state and emerges back out into the Atlantic. But a reminder here locally, no impacts for us besides our local beaches and that rip current risk. We are going to be staying sunny and dry through now and into the weekend. So that's why no tropical alerts are in place for us here locally. It's just that rip current risk that will be the main concern. Now, one reason why Milton is beginning to weaken just a little bit is going to be what we talked about. It's going to be that dry air, more of that shear that it's having to interact with. We had that cold front move through earlier in the week. It brought in some lower dew points for us. It was refreshing in the morning, but once we start to see more of that dry air just on the backside of Milton, that's what's leading to more of that disruption and what's leading to some of that weakening, along with some of that shear. So we'll continue to track Milton as it tracks further off towards the east, making that landfall approach just on the south side there of Tampa heading into tonight. And again, the last check there from the National Hurricane Center at 11 a.m. sustained winds 145 miles per hour, that Category 4 hurricane. We will get that next advisory update just coming out within about the next 23 minutes, expecting that closer towards lunchtime at noon there. The National Hurricane Center putting these out every hour, tracking northeast at 17 miles per hour, and at last check 150 miles west southwest off of Fort Myers. So only getting closer, again tracking northeast, but it's located just west southwest of Fort Myers, making that landfall approach just a little bit on the north side is where that cone currently has it. But regardless of what that number says, what that track says, those impacts are going to be felt for many areas across the state of Florida. Again, we've been talking about the millions of people that will be impacted from this. Not just it's going to be that wind, it's going to be the storm surge, the power outages, and those tornado warnings until Milton tracks across the state and into the Atlantic heading into Thursday evening. So we'll be tracking this heading into tonight and heading into tomorrow morning, keeping you updated here on Fox 10. Although our impacts are minimal, we still have a lot of folks that have evacuated from from this system that are keeping updated with us here locally. So again, we'll keep you updated on what's going on with Milton and also what's going on with our local conditions in the Foxton viewing area. Heading into the rest of today, we're going to be experiencing sunshine here. We're going to be seeing those mid to upper 80s, a little warm for where we should be this time of year. Some breezy winds around 10 to 15 miles per hour, but we're staying clear and we're staying dry. Just thinking of our friends, family, and neighbors that are located further towards the southeast for that portion of Florida. Now, coming up in just a little bit, I'm going to continue to talk about Hurricane Milton, those impacts that they're expecting, tracking some of the live conditions, keeping you updated with those live cameras, and I'll talk more about what we can expect heading into the weekend. Those details are coming up soon. Joe.
Check of the weather. Jen, what can you tell us?
What I can tell you right now is going to be a great time to download the Fox 10 weather app. That way you can stay updated with the forecast and everything that's going on. We update these forecast videos for you daily. So we have these short form videos at the top. We have the long form videos at the bottom, but also it's going to be a great tool under the radar feature. If you zoom out, then we can start to see all of the radar there for Hurricane Milton. So you can start to see what areas are being impacted so far with some of those rain bands. Plus also you can start to see the cone, track along with those estimates. We have the icons there, expected to be that Category 3 hurricane later on for this evening at 7 p.m. just located offshore, and really the direction that they're estimating at that time is going to be northeast at 15 miles per hour, so expecting it to slow down just a little bit, but the max sustained winds there are going to be 125 miles per hour. So still going to be packing quite the punch as it approaches closer towards the western coast there of the Florida Peninsula. But even then, if you have questions of who's included in the cone, so it's still going to be Bradenton, Sarasota, St. Petersburg just on the edge there along with Tampa. Even after it moves further inland, we're going to see Winter Haven included in there, Bowling Green, Florida, and also we're going to see it across the state. And so Cape Canaveral, Melbourne, down towards Sebastian, and even portions of Orlando, all included within that cone. In case you have questions, you want to track along with what's going on, you can do so by downloading the Fox 10 weather app. You can even just scan the QR code there at the bottom of your screen and it'll take you directly to the App Store. Now I'm going to have a final look at your forecast coming up in just a little bit, but for now, here is a live view outside. This is going to be downtown Tampa, so a little bit of an interesting camera view there, but through the winds, a little breezy. We'll continue just to track Hurricane Milton and check in on additional areas here on Fox 10 Midday. 3 to Know Before You Go is on the way on the other side of this break.
All right, most importantly today, we're getting a check of the weather.
Yeah, we're looking great for our area, but we are tracking Milton all morning long, Jen.
That's exactly right. The National Hurricane Center is putting out the hourly advisory updates. We expect that next one just coming out within about the next 4 minutes. Was hoping to have it a little early, but at that 11 a.m. check, Hurricane Milton was still going to be that Category 4 storm, expected to bring some of those impacts to the west coast of the Florida Peninsula, even traveling towards the east coast there. We'll continue to keep you updated here on Fox 10. Our forecast here locally, sunshine heading into today. Those mid to upper 80s, clear skies, northeasterly winds, a little breezy, and we're going to continue to stay sunny and dry all week long through the weekend and into next week. A slight dip in our temperatures over the next few days, but also some refreshing mornings by Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
All right, Jen, thank you. Our hearts go out to our friends in Florida tonight, and of course our meteorologists will keep you updated on that.
All right, thanks for watching Fox 10 Midday as we leave you with a live look of the conditions. We'll see you back here tomorrow.